Okay, Purim. Chag Purim Sameach. Um, so happy, 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 which is the theme of Purim, is being happy. And we say that as soon as the month of Adar comes around, Marbim Bisimcha, we're overflowed, we're filled with joy and happiness, um, which is a big statement, right? As human beings, we know that our emotions, our feelings are inconsistent and like waves. We're happy, we're sad, we're this, we're that. The emotions are not a constant, especially not for 31 consecutive straight days or however many days are in the lunar month, 28 and three-quarter days of the lunar month of Adar. So it's an interesting thing to say, but when the month comes in, we usher in joy. And what does that mean? And I have a teaching about Purim that I want to share. This comes from the Megillah, from Megilat Esther. It says in chapter 9:22, which is after Haman's plot to destroy and murder all the Jewish people, the genocide was thwarted and the people are saved. It says, Nihafach, Nihifach lahem um, Migon l'simcha. Nihifach is like it's turned upside down, it's flipped, it's reversed, it's transformed. So for them, for the Jewish people who were there, who thought they were about to all be rounded up and killed in this plot to eliminate them, it was flipped and reversed, and everything got transformed from grief and mourning to joy. This reversal of the lowest you could be all the way up to the highest you could be. And that is really kind of the cycle that we go through as human beings, right? Usually, if the day's going okay, like we're somewhere, in the lower wave between those two extremes. But we know what it's like to hit bottom, right? To hit real crisis and suffering and grief and mourning. And we know what it feels like to be elated on such a level of like, oh, I'm like filled with joy, like so much joy. Um, and the question for us is, how do we intentionally cultivate that movement between those extremes? How do we pay attention to that? How do we notice when we're really down here? How do we get ourselves back up from there? When we're all the way up here, how do we remind ourselves that this too shall pass, gam ze'avor, and we know that we don't stay there forever, that we're somewhere in the middle there. Another teaching that I wanted to offer comes from Patanjali Sutras, from the Yoga Sutras. So in the Yoga Sutra 233, I'm not going to read you the Sanskrit, but basically the teaching is when when upsetting or unclear or confusing or sorrowful thoughts and feelings arise and present themselves, intentionally cultivate the opposite. The teaching is to do the opposite, which is an interesting teaching, right? Because sometimes when we're feeling a certain way, we don't want to deny or avoid those feelings. And we say, with a lot of mindfulness, let yourself sit with the feeling, let yourself sit with the emotion, with the thought, without judgment, with a lot of compassion. Just be patient and present with what is arising. So it almost seems counterintuitive and not that yogic to say, no, no, do the opposite. But there's some wisdom in that too. And I think that Purim is also showing us that wisdom, that sometimes to pull ourselves out of something really low, we need to, do the opposite. Do the opposite. We need to flip it, lehefoch, like just turn it upside down. So the practice I thought we would do today is what does it feel like to, instead of saying, well, I'm feeling exhausted today, I'm going to crawl into bed and stay there, or I'm really feeling angry today, I'm just going to stew in my anger, right? I have a friend who does that a lot. She has a real issue with when she gets angry, she gets stuck in her anger and she could stay angry for days and she's miserable and she doesn't know how to get unstuck from the anger. So what would be doing the opposite of the anger? It might be feeling really, really loving and embracing everything. Might feel like the opposite of being angry and resentful. It's like, I love everything. I'm so happy. But how do you force yourself to just flip it upside down and see what takes root? So I thought we would play with that. Um, let's just sit for a moment in meditation before we move. Let yourself drop into the body with your awareness. So noticing where you are in space. And let's just play with like doing things differently today. So if you normally start with where your sit bones are touching the ground and from the base and upward, maybe start from your crown of your head. Like, where is your head floating in space right now? Notice where your head physically is balanced on top of, above your shoulders. And then maybe from the top down, settle into your body through the shoulders, through that heart space, and then down through the belly. And then finding your hips and your pelvic bones. And we usually observe the breath. I usually first name the inhale arising and then the exhale. But why don't you start with observing an exhale? How does your experience of breath change when you think of the breath as beginning with an exhale and then ending with an inhale? And take a moment to think of a time that you were really in a dark, difficult place, struggling with your own emotion and feeling like stuck. When will this pass? How can I get this to pass? And then see if you can recall what eventually did you do, or even without your intervention, what happened that led that feeling or thought to shift and change? And offering gratitude for those resources, whatever, if there were people who supported you, if there were skills that you have that supported you. And then call to mind some experience of feeling so, so filled with joy, just overflowing with simcha. And just notice where you were, who you were with, what was happening, what were the conditions in which you were experiencing that joy. And notice if there was anything you did that participated in cultivating that. And those are also your skills and resources. So part of our resilience, how we move from darkness into light, from sorrow into joy, has a lot to do with our resilience, our attitude, the thoughts we're telling ourselves, the things we're doing behaviorally to change our situation. Take a moment to offer any other prayers or intentions you have this morning for your practice. And when you're ready, why don't you come to start on hands and knees? And you can start with some cat and cows and just stretching through the spine, loosening up in the vertebra, engaging the belly, the core, the breath, just moving through your initial movements this morning. So as a yoga teacher and as someone who really has a very strong connection between my embodiment and my feelings, my thoughts, my spirit, I know for a fact for me, you can decide if this is a fact for you, but I know that moving my body in different ways shifts and changes what I'm feeling and thinking. There's no doubt in my mind that my body is one of my greatest tools and resources for helping me to change my state. If I throw on music and I dance, that shifts my energy immediately. If I lie with my legs up the wall and, with a weighted sandbag over my belly, that changes my energy and my state immediately. So part of what I want to offer today, we're going to tuck toes and come on up to your first down dog of the morning. Take a moment to pedal through your heels, bending one knee and the other. Just enjoy this inversion, getting your head lower than your heart. Part of what I'm going to offer today are different poses that you can think of as tools for your toolkit to help you change your state. Shift your hips side to side. Just notice, that feels so good in my outer hip and down the outer IT band when I shift the hip all the way out to one side and then the other. Good. All right, you're going to walk your feet up towards your hands. And you can just keep fingertips to the floor if you'd like, or if you want to take opposite elbows for a little extra weight, you can just gently traction out your spine. And just make a connection right now with how does it feel to be upside down? And when I say feel, it could be the physical sensations of your body where you're sensing it inwardly in your bones, your muscles, your blood flow, but it can also be a heart feeling. It could also be a mental thought feeling, right? What is it that's going on inside of me right now? As you're ready, slowly unfurl yourself and stand up. Ah, okay. I'm gonna show you something which is called a breath of joy. This will get you a little heated. It's also going to take us from being upward to being, like to folding over, literally flipping ourselves upside down. Not like full flips, don't worry. Okay, so it's a three-part inhale and a one big exhale. I'll show you what it looks like. It almost looks like you're a conductor. So there's an inhale inhale. Oh, wait. No, sorry. Start up overhead first, right? Inhale, and then out to the sides. Inhale, and then up a third inhale, and then a big exhale. You sweep yourself over your thighs. Your arms come up behind you. Inhale all the way up. Inhale again. Inhale again. Exhale. So you're really filling up your lungs, maybe to a point that is almost like, wait, can I do this? This is uncomfortable to breathe in 3 times in a row. But let's try to expand our breath capacity, filling ourselves, filling ourselves, filling ourselves with joy, exhaling anything you don't need. So inhale, positivity, gratitude, happiness. Exhale, anger, whatever it is for you. If you want to open your mouth on the exhale, feel free. If you want to try to inhale through the mouth, see what that feels like, that's fine. What's going to help you to take in as much fresh oxygen, energy, and release the old, the negative, what is not needed. Good. Do 1 or 2 more rounds of this. And when you are ready, you can find your Tadasana and just rest either with hands over the heart or hands by your side, eyes closed, and just see what is happening inside of yourself. So you can also notice energy. You can notice heat, color, pulsation. Notice whatever there is to notice about how your inner environment changed through that exercise. All right, let's move through some lunge series just to get our body stretched through the hips. So we'll start towards the front of the mat, hands at your heart. You can smile. Inhale, the arms come up overhead. As you exhale, folding down over the legs, drop the chin to the chest, lengthen the back of the skull. From here, just take your right leg all the way back behind you. The toes point forward, the heel is up off the mat. And you're gonna rise up for a lunge. If you'd like, just to feel grounded for a minute, you could take both palms and kind of press down on that thigh. And from that pressing down, lift your shoulders, your torso a little higher. So the belly is really drawing in. You'll feel a Kegel, like a pelvic floor, Mula Bandha, if you know that term in yoga, like a root lock. And from that place, you're lifting. Good, 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 good. And then you can take your arms up like a letter V, like a victory. Good. If it feels good for you and you want to go a little deeper into that hip flexor stretch, you can lean your torso back a little bit. But think about like leaning back over a big beach ball. You're not crunching the low back, you're extending and lengthening up and back. So you're getting taller. Yeah, good. From here, just for fun, you can have your blocks nearby if you need to, this for the help bring the floor up. But from here, you're going to bring your hands to the floor or blocks and just lift that right leg straight up to the sky. So you're in a standing split. Get yourself upside down. Now, I know we're not totally warmed up yet. Your hamstrings are probably a little stiff. You're not going so deep over that front leg. That back leg might not get super high. That's okay. That's okay. Just experience what it feels like to be upside down with a leg to the sky. Naturally, you might feel a little winded. You might feel like your heart is beating faster. That's physiologically normal. That's okay. That is shifting our energy. Good. Bring that top leg back behind you. You're going to plant your hands to the floor. Step back to a plank pose. From your plank, your choice, if you'd like, you can do some push-ups for some extra strength here.
You can also lower the knees down to do a modified push-up. And ultimately just come all the way down to the belly, untuck the toes. Let's take a cobra pose, but take your hands farther forward, not right under your shoulders like we would normally do. Take them up almost like by your head. Good, really spread the fingers, press all of your fingertips into the floor. Elbows can come up. Good. And then just peel your torso up off of the mat, right? Belly is drawing into the back of the spine. All 10 toes are down. Good. And then just wrap your elbows back in towards the side of your rib cage. So you should feel that that pulls your shoulders down out of your ears. You're squeezing your mid-back muscles. That should feel very strong in your traps, in your lats. Good. Opening up the heart. Good. Shaking if that's what's happening in your muscles. That's good. And slowly lower back down. Now you can come up over hands and knees and come on back into your downward facing dog. Good. Take a moment in your down dog. You can shake your head, yes and no. Just release the neck and the throat. Good. Push even more into the palms, like you're pushing the floor forward away from you. That's going to pull your hips up and back even more. Feel that? Yeah. If I were in the room with you, I would place my palm to your low back and press your hips back away from your hands. So imagine that I'm doing that and feel how that pulls your weight back towards your feet, towards your heels. Good. From here, take your right leg up to the sky. Down dog split. Woohoo! Circle your ankle one direction. Circle the ankle the other direction. Good. And then you can bend that right knee and drop the heel behind you and gaze up underneath that right armpit. So we're in a twister stretch. Good. And then you're going to bring that knee back in line with the other knee. And you're going to lower that foot. Take a look up at your hands. You can bend the knees and spring forward in a jump, or you can walk your feet up to the front of the mat. Good. And then slowly inhale and rise up when you're ready. And hands to the heart. Okay, how are we doing? Getting hot? Yeah. When we go upside down, it literally changes what's going on in your body. So one way to warm yourself up internally if you're cold is go upside down. If you're really sleepy, you know how your body temperature drops and you're tired, going upside down brings all this fresh blood flow to your head. It wakes you up again, and adds heat to your body. So changing our state. Okay. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, folding down over the legs. Inhale, halfway up to lengthen. Get your shoulders back from the ears, belly in. Good. And then you can step your left leg back behind you this time. Again, we're just coming into that lunge. So the front knee is bent over the front ankle, not past. Your back heel is up. And again, you can just take this feeling of like extra grounding down. And then that can help you kind of lengthen. And you should feel a really nice big stretch in the front of that left hip flexor. Yep. Chest is open, expansive, and then I can bring my arms up here. Very nice. Core is still engaged. Your core is always active and engaged, right? If you set the pose up right with the legs and feet, you don't have to grip in the belly. The belly lift naturally happens because of how strongly the legs are positioned and drawing energy up from the earth, really. Good. All right, from here, we're doing that standing split. So either hands down to the floor or to blocks beneath you. You're going to lift that left leg straight up to the sky. Good. Don't collapse into the right knee. Take a look at your right knee. You want to squeeze the muscles on the right thigh to engage the muscles around that knee. So you're lifting up, not collapsing down. And that left leg lifts as high as you can get it. Drop the head. Relax the throat and the shoulders. What do they say about turn a frown upside down? We're literally just flipping and turning upside down and seeing what that's doing. Good. From here, we brought that left leg way back behind us. You're going to plant the hands to the floor, coming into your plank pose. And from this round of plank, I would encourage you to do any version of core that you want. Again, you can do some push-ups. If you want to do something fancy because it feels fun, you could do a push-up, then roll to one side for a side plank. Hold your balance there, strong arm and core. And then you could do another push-up and roll to the other side. You could skip the push-ups completely and just take a side plank to each side. Right? Whatever you want, your practice. Good. All right, and then you're going to come back to your downward facing dog. This time your left leg lifts up to the sky. We're taking that down dog split. And you can circle the ankle in one direction, circle it in the other, and then drop that heel behind you. Your standing leg is still engaged. Reach that heel back as if it's in down dog, which it is. Yep. Keep opening up and stretching the inner thighs. You can gaze up under that left armpit. Good. And then bring the leg back over, and you can just step your feet up to the front of your mat to stand. And here, take opposite elbows and just dangle yourself out. Give yourself a little traction. Bend the knees and roll on up. How are we doing? Good? Okay. Let's do a little bit of a standing tree pose, very basic. We know the tree figures prominently into the story of Purim, actually, because the ends when there is justice, the justice gets carried out on the tree. I don't want to get graphic, but okay. Take your arms out to the sides. You're just going to stand on the right leg and lift the left knee. Let's do what we did before with the lunge. Just take your hands palm over palm and just kind of press down on the thigh, but also lift up from the thigh into the hand. You're not actually moving the leg, right? This is core. Do you feel this? Now push a little harder. You should immediately feel that in the oblique abs and that's really strong. Yeah, the stronger you pull up and push down, the stronger you're working your core here. Ooh, good. All right, let's just do that on the other side. So same thing, find your balance. And just notice if this helps your balance, yeah, definitely building strength here. Yep, if you are having trouble with balance, use one hand to a wall, but use the other hand. You could do this with one hand, right? You can even put the palm forward. But press up, push down, and you're going to feel your abs engage. More than that, you'll feel the inner thigh and the other leg engaged to hold you towards the center line. This is great. This is really good for balance in general. Good. All right, release that out. Shake it out. All right, let's try our tree pose now. Standing on the right leg, lift the left. We're here. We just did that. We're going to open the hip to the side. Open the knee, Yep. And now place the foot either to the upper inner thigh or to the lower shin below the knee. Just don't press into the knee directly because that's not good for your knee joint. So wherever you are, a third option is if the balance is tricky or you're worried for some reason about falling, you can bring your toes, same position, but toes to a block. Right? So wherever you are. Now, wherever you are, hands pressed together, foot presses to the inner thigh presses to foot. So everything is pulling to the midline, nice and strong. Feel your toes spread on the floor, feel that arch lifted. So we're rooting and rising. There's all of this opposition always at play, right? The fact that there's pushing and pulling in different directions is actually what gives us strength. And we're standing in the center of that. We're finding our balance in the center of that. But you might want to lift your arms up over the head. I know you can't really see me on screen, but like a tree with tall branches. Good. And maybe you want to take a little side bend. What does that feel like? Right? This is our emotions, our reactivity arising and changing and shifting and flowing in a moment, and we're getting knocked off of our center. I was calm, I was happy, and then this happened, or so-and-so did this or said this, and now I'm losing my sense of balance. But how do I actually maintain this core presence? This core presence. Good. All right, from here, release that leg. We're gonna go into a standing split one more time. Fold yourself over the right leg. That left leg is up behind you. And we're gonna do 3 little curtsy squats. What that looks like is I'm taking my knee, my knee that's up in the sky behind the standing leg knee. I'm coming across and I'm bending and squatting down. And then I'm shooting it back up to the sky. Yep, and again, I squeeze, squeeze, squeeze into a little ball and back up to the sky. And one more time, squeeze down, squeeze into a little ball, reach it back up to the sky, and then lower that leg next to the other and roll myself up to stand. How'd we like that? You like that? All right. Okay, let's do the other leg. So standing on the left and lifting up the right. And again, we're just getting really strong here. This is a reminder just to like lift, right? The more we do that, we're lifting, we're engaging. Good. And then open the leg to the side. And again, find the place where it feels right for you. Yeah. The tendency is to push too much with the foot and lift the hip and shift the hip to the side. We're not letting that happen. The inner thigh is pressing back in, this feeling of pushing in 2 directions and finding a midline. Yeah. Yeah. You can even really like engage that inner thigh muscle on the standing leg and feel how strong that feels. And instantly when I do that, I can feel my core engage and I feel myself get taller. Good. And then from here, my arms can come overhead. Good. And then I can play with what does it look like to maintain balance somewhere in the in-between. Good. Good. Nice. I'm going to bring my knee back forward. And I'm going to let myself fold over that leg for a standing split. Take a moment to come back into your breath. Just breathe here. Does it feel different to fill your lungs from the bottom to the top instead of the other way around? Not that that's really what's happening, but it just feels different, the experience from this angle. All right, and we're doing 3 of those curtsy lunges. So that top leg knee is going to bend, come behind the standing leg knee, and you squat down low, squeeze into a little ball, and lift it back up. And do 2 more of those. I'm going to take a look and see how you guys are doing with that. Awesome. Good. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Lift it up and then lower the leg. And let's come sit down in a little toe squat. Okay, options here. One is my feet are hip distance apart and I'm just coming up here. Yeah. And I'm trying to find my balance. I can have blocks to either side of me to help me balance. I'll show you from the side what that looks like. So I'm right here and I'm balanced. If that's, I mean, this is a really good stretch for the feet, you know, for the bottom of the feet. If that's too much and that's not going to happen, or if your knees are not in a place to do that, you can create a tower out of your blocks and you can just sit on your blocks and still get a little bit of that stretch in the, right? Or bring it, I don't know, find some variation that's going to work for you. I wanted to open up a little bit of a squat into the feet. Okay. All right, now, if you can also bring your feet closer so that the toes touch. Maybe your inner thighs squeeze together and you balance here. And this is called a sage pose. Sage, like not the plant sage, but like the guru, like someone who has amazing wisdom. You know, it's like a very Zen kind of feeling. Like I can find equanimity
in the precariousness of life. Thoughts are always flowing, emotions are always flowing, outer circumstances, inner circumstances are always shifting and changing. But can I find a sense of equanimity? Hishtavlut, I think, is the midah in Hebrew. The sense of equanimity. Okay, come on out of that. Woo, sit down. Let's point and flex a few times through the feet and circle through the ankles. Okay. Let's take an easy kind of a variation on the tree pose we did, but with no balance, but it's similar. So take your left knee, bend it, and you're just going to place the heel to the inside of the foot. Look how this is a tree. We just did this standing, but it feels totally different. Okay, might want your blocks nearby. We're just going to take this into a forward fold, head of knee pose, Janu Shirshasana. But there's a little bit of a twist happening in this pose because the hips are naturally were asymmetrical here. And if we were really to just fold forward from the waist, it would be more like to the center line. But we're trying to fold ourselves over the legs. There's a little twist. So sit up tall. You can even take your hands to your rib cage. You're lifting the rib cage. Draw your right ribs back slightly and the left ribs forward. And you want to think about your left ribs reaching towards the inner extended leg and fold forward that way. So we're almost angling ourselves on the twist here, okay? And then you can take the blocks out and rest the hands or the forearms to the blocks and just hang out there and breathe. And this is not one of the most pleasant poses in terms of the intensity level of the stretch, right? So notice where you're beginning. What are the emotions that are showing up? What are the thoughts? What is your body sensing? And as you're there over time, see what shifts and what you're doing or what you're not doing that allows that shift to happen. If there are unhelpful thoughts that arise, can you notice them and maybe change the thought to something else? Like with a lot of intention, that's dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. It's like, oh, you want a different result, a different feeling, a different thought. Choose the opposite. That's the yogic teaching too. Choose a different thought, replace it. As you're ready, sit yourself back up. Let's take a little counter twist. So you're just gonna twist around. You could take the right fingertips to the outer left thigh, sit up tall again, lift yourself out of the pelvic bowl, belly is engaged, spine is strong, and then twist, twist, twist. Keep that pelvic floor engaged. Everything is nice and strong, wringing yourself out. Good. Come on back to the center. Let's take the feet to touch and just shake out the hips here for a moment. And take some nice circles. Circle the other direction. Good. And when you're ready, let's switch sides. So take that seated tree pose. On the other side, left leg extends, right foot is to the inner left thigh, sit up nice and tall. And again, this feeling of how do I draw my right rib cage in towards the midline and that left rib cage pulls back slightly. And I'm gonna gently kind of pour myself forward and over that leg. And I'm gonna let myself settle in, observe, and you might choose a different feeling or sensation or thought. Just choose one and then see if you can intentionally change it using the power of your own presence. Remember that the breath is an amazing resource you have at your disposal. And slowly come up out of the pose as you're ready, finding that counter twist. So drawing yourself around, again, really strong and contained in the pelvic floor and belly. And twist, twist, twist. Good. And then unwind. Okay, I'm going to offer something that we don't usually do, which is getting on the top of our head. Now, I'm not saying you have to do a headstand. I can take you through steps if any of you think that you would want to do that. We'll see. But this is just this experience of like how often do we walk on our feet all the time, right? Whether we're aware of the sensations in our feet and our shoes, barefoot, whatever, but we don't usually put pressure on the top of our head, unless we're like in the shower scrubbing our hair. So let's just feel what that feels like. Again, as another way that you might change your state to feel grounded in a different way. So here's what I'm going to suggest. Starting from sitting on your heels and bringing your hands forward, you're then going to lift your seat up and just place the top of the head to the floor. Very simple. And from here, you can just use, I'm going to take my knees slightly apart. You could just use your kind of bending into and out of the knees to massage the top of your head. And you can massage up and down. You can also gently massage side to side. And just feel, you might feel like a pop in your ears. You might feel like so much muscular tension in your head that you weren't aware of. Obviously, if you have any neck or cervical injuries or shoulder injuries, just be really smart and cautious about what feels safe to you here. But this is just giving yourself a massage by putting pressure on the top of your head. And if you find a spot that feels especially tender, you can just kind of gently hang out there and massage around it. There's actually, if any of you are familiar with like polyvagal theory and like how you engage the vagus nerve, which is directly related to your nervous system's regulation or dysregulation. When you have a lot of anxiety, a lot of rumination, overthinking, your brain won't shut down, you're feeling very, your energy is all frazzled. One thing that you can do, which actually stimulates your vagus nerve, is to put the palms of your hands over the top of your head and press down on the top of your head like you're containing yourself at that upmost chakra. But if this feels good to you to do this the way we just did, right? You try that as well, right? Like just so this is something you could do even if you're like, you're whatever during your day, you're out somewhere and you're feeling your anxiousness and your energy is like up here. You push down on your own head. Another one that comes from polyvagal theory is you take one hand under your left, take your right hand under your left armpit, and almost like you're pulling in towards the midline, which is kind of what we did before, this feeling of pressing against yourself. Pull in towards the midline here, and then use your other hand to hug yourself and just pull in, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. This is another thing that it tells your vagus nerve that you are safe, you are contained. It can immediately impact and change that nervous feeling of I'm not contained, I'm scared, to like, oh, okay, I feel safe. So the same thing with the yogic, what we just did is coming down onto the head that way. It's the same thing. So you might play with that and notice how that makes you feel. Okay, does anybody want to go into a little bit of a headstand balance? Just to see what that might feel like to play? Like the next step of that? No, we're going to leave that for another day. Okay, come down on your back. Come down on your back and let's do some grounding relaxation. Oh. So if you have a block nearby, that would be great. Otherwise, if you have a bolster or pillow, let's just invert our hips, which would feel great. So first, let's just do some rolling bridges, and then we'll place a block under the hips and stay there in that inversion. So on an inhale, you're going to lift your hips up and lift your arms up overhead. And on an exhale, you're going to slowly, slowly, slowly roll that back down. You're trying to tilt the tailbone up and have your low back sacrum be the last thing that comes down, as opposed to plopping all down at once. So you're trying to really try to innervate through the spine. That's going to be core as well. Inhale, lift all the way up, pushing into the inner heels and the big toes, lifting those inner thighs. And then as you exhale, slow, 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 vertebra by vertebra, using that upper belly core. Good. Do a few more of those just to open up the thighs, the chest, the shoulders. You can close your eyes here and just feel yourself flowing with the breath. And then when you're ready, you'll keep the arms down, but press up through the hips. And you could take the block on its lowest level and place it underneath the low back. You want the block, sorry, I'm wearing black, so I don't know if you can see so well. And my mat is black, so that doesn't help. But the block is coming under the flat part of your low back, the sacrum. It should not be so far forward that you're like arching over here, and it shouldn't be so far back that your tailbone is dropping and your ribs are separating. It should feel really good, like solid, stable. Yeah. If you want to go a little more into the hip flexor stretch, you could bring that block up onto the medium setting and go just a little higher. And we're just getting this feeling of inversion, right? Again, usually our hips are not above our heart. So this feeling of what changes in my body when I let that downward flow of energy. And if you'd like, wherever you are, you just stay here and just feel this for a while. You can also play with taking one leg up at a time or maybe both legs so that you're in some additional inversion, like a variation of a supported shoulder stand. And let yourself settle into your breath. Notice if the breath gets slower, longer, deeper as you let yourself relax here in a grounded way. If you'd like to take a little bit of a glute stretch, you could take that figure four or reclining pigeon stretch either on your block or take the block out of the way. Do it from the floor. If there's anything else you need before Shavasana, feel free to take that. If you need a reclining twist or anything else, and then find your way ultimately to your relaxation pose. And in the last few moments of your practice, maybe just reflecting on your own resilience and the ability you have to transform your thinking, your feelings, your behavior. May all of our struggles and sadnesses and sufferings be transformed, transmuted into joy. Aseh shalom b'mamahu, yatzeh shalom aleinu vel kol Yisrael vel kol Yoshvei Tevel v'imru. Amen. Take as much time as you need to relax and finish your practice. Thank you for joining me, and Chag Purim Sameach.